maybe there's a limit to the disinformation we all suffer under from the CNNs and the NPRs of the world. Maybe there's a limit to woke. And by woke, I would mean or define as aggressive pushing of a host of left cultural and political precepts, almost without respect for opposing arguments, that these are just absolutely decided, non-negotiable facts of life. To me, that is a woke attitude, because we know that's not true. So it's very refreshing to hear from young people who are making a difference, and that's why Christopher Phillips and other people at Chicago Thinker are, give me great optimism for the future. I think it's probably true that the generation behind the millennials, call them Z or Zoomers or whatever you want to call them, getting into their 20s now, are going to be a little more circumspect when it comes to swallowing some of these narratives. I think that there's some evidence, and regardless of which side of this you sit on, I think there's some evidence that they are more pro-life, for example. Imagine how much the left has worked to present pro-choice as the only viable or moral position in a modern society. How retrograde they've attempted to paint anyone who's pro-life as being, So the fact that it appears that young people, Zoomers, are starting to question things like the sacrament of abortion suggests that that's their own form of rebellion, right? That's their own form of pushback against their own baby boomer parents, for example, who came of age in the 60s and 70s and who accepted all of these things as a matter of course. And it hasn't served their parents very well in terms of divorces, drug and alcohol use, general, alienation. And so, the baby boomers, among other things, and I'm not saying it's their fault per se or that they pushed it per se, but nonetheless, they presided over a period of intense secularization in this country. And there's a lot of facets to that, abortion and birth control being two of them. And generally a greater sexual licentiousness, more drug and alcohol use, less church attendance, later marriage, if any, more divorces, if married, fewer kids, if any. I mean, these are all huge secular trends, and they're not entirely laid at the feet of the baby boomers, don't get me wrong. But these trends came into the fore as baby boomers came of age. And so I think the children of baby boomers, which some are millennials, but some are the Z generation below Zoomers, are questioning all of that. And I don't blame them. I mean, when houses are going up 20 or 30% a year and baby boomers are sitting there with their house paid off comfortably, that's going to cause some intergenerational angst when they see so much divorce, so many second marriages, third marriages, when they see all of these kinds of products of an increasingly secular country, then they're going to start to question that. Now, I'm not sure that the secularization of America is going to turn around anytime soon. And secularization is absolutely unequivocally tied to lower birth rates. I mean, we can see that time and time again across different countries. So there's no question of that. So, these young people are maybe looking for something more than just a really expensive college degree that gets them into debt and maybe doesn't get them much of a job. The inability to save up enough or fast enough to buy even a condo, let's say, I think is very different today than it was when, my generation, Gen X, was young. Marriage coming far later with hookup culture, that's a radical change. And so when you put all this together, what it means to be a rebel today is very different than what it meant to be a rebel for their baby boomer parents in the 60s and 70s. And so that strikes me as a very interesting development. We know that Orthodox religions are on the rise. People are getting less satisfaction from happy, clappy, modernist churches and seeking more of like the Latin Mass amongst Catholics, seeking out Orthodox sects that have more symbolism, more tradition, and certainly more traditional services. So that's, I think, another interesting anecdotal point to consider when it comes to the generation we just heard from in the form of young Mr. Phillips at the University of Chicago.